Hey everyone, welcome back to Italian Cinema Night here on the Bad Movie Night channel. And we thought we would return with a Dario Argento classic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Tenebrae from 1982, directed by Dario Argento.
Filthy, slimy pervert.
Okay, so first impressions, it seems like you might not be as high on this movie as me, which is okay. It's okay.
It's okay. It's a very different Argento, you know? Which
Yeah,
is
it is.
cool.
I agree. It is a bit of a different beast, especially because this came after Suspiria and after Blood Red, right?
Yeah.
But what's Tenebrae about?
Tenebrae is about an American writer who is in Rome, and he's stalked by a serial killer bent on harassing him while killing all the people associated with him and his work on his latest book.
And then some hijinks ensue. A ridiculous ending happens. And there's a lot to like about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is unique, you know. Argento talked a lot about like coming off of like Suspiria, Inferno, and wanting to do something different and jumping back into the genre with like fresh eyes and a different take, and that's kind of what we got with this.
Yeah, it feels a lot different than the recent Giallos we've been watching, which are older.
Yes.
There is some experimentation to this movie that sets it apart from those, and some very explicit violence and gore, which I love, but was just like,
wow.
we haven't been watching anything that goes there, you know what I mean, recently.
Yeah.
So this was like, this felt more horror, like my horror fanness came out watching this.
That's fair. It's definitely next level violence for sure.
Yeah, there's just like Opera has a very specific, awesome sequence with the lady getting shot in the eye. This movie has one very specific sequence that is really well done and really fun, and that's the arm chopping thing.
Oh yes, yeah. I thought you were talking about the long camera, one camera.
No,
shot.
that is awesome. We'll get into that as well, and that is one of the reasons why I like this movie.
Yeah,
because it does feel experimental in a lot of ways.
It is. It's very stylish. So I don't know if you know this, but he wrote this when he was coming back from LA, and he actually had a fan stalking him and leaving him crazy messages and death threats. And that's kind of where the inspiration came for like taking an artist whose work is being used against him in like this crazy killer way.
Yeah, because that is one of the main points of the movie, is that his books are like filled with misogyny and like a conservative-ish bent, and so all the victims are people who have like, they're like lesbians or gay or whatever, like, or you know what I mean, like just women doing something outside of what they consider reasonable or whatever, because this guy is so inspired by this writing.
Yeah. So like, I guess we kind of have to talk about it because it's hard not to talk about this movie without mentioning this. There's actually a two-killer kind of twist. So the guy that is the main killer is inspired by this book and kind of like sees it as like kind of like a comment on like society and its deviantness and having to like put the deviants in line kind of thing. And that's where he comes into like killing people.
Yeah. And I like the kind of like they peer into these themes, but it also, the movie has like a full wraparound back to kind of why you understand the killer's motives a little bit better, which was interesting, and it's teased out throughout the movie in very surreal ways, and I was happy for the payoff by the end.
Yeah, I understand that completely.
Like like at one point they accuse him of writing misogyny books.
Yes.
But then he pushes back. He's like, he's not a misogynist, all this stuff. But then in the end, when you start to like unravel what happened to him, how he was humiliated sexually by this woman, and like he is very much so. He has a hatred for women, but he hides it so well, or he doesn't even realize he has it. Maybe I don't know.
I think also a lot of that was just like Argento messing around with the commentary on these movies and this genre being misogynistic, which it is.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
Yeah. I didn't know if you even knew this, but or even realize it. I didn't realize I was watching it, but in the memory flashback, the individual that's like his sexual attention is played by Eva Robbins, who's one of the earliest trans actors. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that was done apparently on purpose, which is pretty cool.
The crane shot.
Yes, the crane shot.
It's awesome and completely pointless.
Yeah, at
like
the same time, right?
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily need it.
I liked it though. Like that was where you sit back and you're like, this must have taken forever, and they did it, and then it really added like nothing to the movie except for just to be cool.
It's a little subtle too. Like supposedly that crane was flown in from Paris just for that shot. It's like when you talk about these elaborate setups, it's like, move aside, I'm going to make this kill sequence now and bring in the crane.
Yeah, but like, I mean, this movie feels much faster paced than a lot of the recent Giallos we watch and stuff too. So it just feels more modern. The soundtrack is like very in your face and pumping, and really adds a lot to the movie. Creates like a really, really interesting tone.
It does, and it's Goblin, of course, which is pretty sweet. But also, this is like when Goblin was breaking up too, so everyone's like in the credits, like I think articulate individually for the music. Yeah, it's cool. I'll tell you one of the things I think is really interesting and unique is like the cinematography and the lighting is very different from anything he's done before. So you're coming from off these bright movies like Suspiria, Inferno of colorful lights, and he's going for more like a minimalistic look, lots of brights, almost overlit scenes, which is very different from his other work, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it definitely looks a lot different, like you're saying, with the lighting and stuff. The other thing is, I mean, this isn't really an Argento thing, it's kind of a Giallo thing, is sometimes the plot feels random.
Yeah.
I'm namely thinking of like a dog and like hobo chase sequences where
right.
And this and it's just like feels random, but then the fact that it leads to like main characters or characters like being somehow now twisted into this murder and stuff plot. It's all like you sit back and you're like, this was 10 minutes and it all happened because this girl got off a bike and then a random dog started chasing her and she ran. Like it's all too random.
It is.
And it's silly at that point.
It is a little silly because it's used as a plot device to find the killer's house and to like, you know, it is kind of silly, but it's also just kind of like Argento doing these, same thing with the dog sequence, like this long, never-ending take of this dog chasing this woman, this victim. He does these long things with these sequences that are just like, and that one obviously sticks out because it's so random, but just a dog, right?
Yeah, it is. And that woman who played that character, I don't know her name, the actress's name, but she is in Zombie 5 Killing Birds, AJ. I just recognize the face.
That's funny.
You also have some American actors. You have John Saxon in this movie, who's very recognizable. And I don't know where you watched it. I assume it's the same, but the entire thing was dubbed in English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we watched the English version.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, I found out Christopher Walken was considered at one part for the lead of the writer.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that was pretty.
I mean, I watched that. Yeah.
A little tidbit fact.
So, what didn't work for you so much in this movie?
It's not so much that stuff didn't work for me. It was just like, it's also just like coming off of like Deep Red, Suspiria, Inferno, which are very, very great movies and much more gothic. You kind of lose the gothic tone in this. This is more like 1970s, a little in the future, kind of like the setting and like and stuff. It has some style to it, but it's just like it meanders a lot until you get to the end, and then the end is really cool, and it's over the top. And I understand it's almost like slashery, like the violence in
Oh, yeah.
this. And of course, like all the violent deaths are like somewhat kind of like sexual in nature in the way that is done as well. It's just like a very different take on Argento. It's just not my favorite take. Like out of all of his films in this genre, this is probably my least favorite, honestly. Like next to, I love Deep Red, I love the Animal Trilogy, but this is definitely like a different kind of border slasher kind of film. I think it's probably a part of it for me.
Yeah, I hear you. It feels different. I think that's kind of why I like it so much too. Well, like, it doesn't quite feel like there's those moments throughout where it hits like, okay, this is classic Argento, and then at other times it does feel very different, and I'll grant you that. But like comparing it back to like just because this is just basically a classic Giallo. You know what I mean? Like, it's erotic and sexy and violent and thrillery and plot all over the place.
Just
and
revved
so like
up more.
But if you compare this to like a 70s, classic Giallo, the music in this is different. It's modern. Like it adds like these new nuances to it that kind of makes it sit out a little bit for me as well.
Yeah, the music's
it's not
fantastic.
its best. Like, it's definitely not one of my favorite Argentos, but yeah, I really like it. And that arm chopping sequence is memorable. So
yeah, you want to talk about some of these sequences?
Oh man, when she gets that arm cut off, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And then she sprays it. The way they ridiculously spray it across the clean white wall is just, so fun.
It's ridiculous. What did you think of like the fake double death thing with like the fake toy razor thing? I think like almost again that was like him commenting on like violence in like his movies. Like he gets that a lot.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like playing on a lot of these things in this film.
I could see that. And then it has like the classic where the guy stands and then he bends down or whatever and the killer's right behind him.
Yeah, that was cool.
It was cool in this though. Like it's
cool.
a thing you've seen so many times before, but in this it felt, I don't know, it was cool.
It is quite an ending. And then you have the random door opening and piece of sculpture going through his chest thing. But man, I'll tell you what, I love how it ends with her just screaming over the credits. It's awesome. It just goes on and the credits are rolling and she's just screaming. Like that's a very memorable ending, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's how all these Giallos go. The last 3 seconds of the movie, you don't know what you're gonna get, but it's gonna be something good.
And he does what he does also what he does in his other movies with like some of these like our writer character has these flashback scenes from when he was younger and he had like this. He was kind of sexually humiliated in a way. They do these like flashback scenes, which I like when they do these well in these movies. And this is something he's done in like Four Flies on Grey Velvet, Deep Red. I think it just adds more layering to these films, makes it better.
Yeah, like I said, it explores the killer's motives or tries to explain them in some way. That's what I liked. And I thought the pacing in this movie, for me, was pretty good, especially how they doled out those flashback sequences.
Yeah. What did you think of the acting? Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought the guy who plays Neil was really pretty good.
Yeah.
He really had a defined character.
Yeah.
He wasn't just like, you know what I mean? Like you could get his personality, and there's a bunch of little hints where they show it, and yeah, I liked that. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I like that too. They just like they made the characters just seem more grounded in like a reality of like which these films typically aren't. Like I thought the writing was a lot better in this with character development.
Yeah, I agree.
But man, what an ending!
What an ending!
I love that double. I love the twist of the TV reporter or the TV personality be the killer, and then he just realizes he can jump on the back of this. That's such a great concept for a movie. I feel like it wasn't quite executed well because you have to pick up on the fact that he realizes that his ex-wife was cheating with his attorney, which I didn't really pick up on any hints that they give you to that. You just have to make that leap.
Isn't there the one scene where she kind of steps out and it's just like, oh, that's what's going on? Yeah, you're right. Like before that, there was no real hints about the attorney guy.
I mean, Peter figures it out somehow. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, how? Like he sees her, but how does he know she's having an affair with this attorney?
Yeah, like if you like read the storyline, I think it's pretty simple. But in watching it, it does feel convoluted sometimes and a little bit confusing because it's simple but also intricate in how many characters are related to how this plot works, that it becomes confusing. You don't remember what people's names are and how that works out and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting film, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. Like it's definitely like memorable in the violence and like stepping up the violence to like next level and coming back to the genre in a really unique way, you know?
Yep, this is just Argento going up till he can get to Mother of Tears, and then Dracula 3D, and
he should have made Mother of Tears instead of this movie, man. It probably would have been good.
At that time,
It probably would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah, this is fun. I like it. If you haven't seen it and you've seen, I don't know, a bunch of other Giallos, I definitely would check this out. Like, this is pretty top tier Giallo for me. I don't know, because it has some modern sensibilities to its plot and stuff like that. It feels like it moves a bit quicker than some of the other ones, I think.
Yeah, that's fair, and it definitely has like a modern flair to it. I could see why you like this with like the uniqueness of it and the violence, and the story's pretty interesting. And I feel like now this is like a story that's been used a million times, but I mean, this is like probably one of the first times it's used in this kind of format, which is cool. So
yeah, cool.
Recommend it?
Definitely.
All right. Guess until next time.